So let me directly ask you, do you think that this National Assembly, this legislature that we have, is able to check the executive, let alone talk about, the judiciary, especially with Senator Akpabio at the helm of affairs?
I personally, I don't think so. That's my personal view. Others may have different views, but that is my personal view. I think that this may be, in terms of that particular measure, this may be one of the weakest legislatures that we've had, right? The ability to stand and be a co-equal arm of government, serve as a check and balance, and put the primary interests of the people first. Remember that the legislature, more than any arm of government, is the arm of government that represents the people, because they're elected from the length and breadth, far and wide. They represent small communities, larger communities in the case of Senate, but small communities in the case of House of Rep. I mean, these are people who are going to Abuja to represent, Kotangora, Kafanchan, Abijo in Lagos, you know what I mean? So these guys are there, and there's a lot riding on their carrying that mandate, with integrity and with the sanctity of the public trust. And I think that of the two principal functions of legislative officers, which is, lawmaking on the one hand and representation of the people on the other, I think there's something to be desired on the part of both, but I think more so on the part of representing the people.
As we speak, there was a report from the Guardian newspaper, if I'm not mistaken, talking about the fact that about 31.8 million Nigerians face acute hunger as food prices rise by 262.98%. We might look at 31 million Nigerians as not many, but of course, I'm sure that if we count 31 million people, there are lots of people who are actually facing hunger.
People.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So if we're not, especially the fact that also we're facing food insecurity with farmers unable to go to their farms, insecurity not being a front burner issue as it should be. I mean, really, let's talk about divesting the economy. How do we even go about it with all these issues that we're having to deal with?
Yeah, you see, a lot of these issues, they are real issues today, but they're not necessarily root cause issues, right? So sometimes they're like symptoms, right? So insecurity, a lot of the time, is a function of the socioeconomic conditions, poverty, the fact that people don't have options, and so on and so forth. The lack of education and so on. And at the end of the day, we will not get to a sustainable solution to these problems until we develop our economy and we are able to grow the economy in a broad-based way. Not just talking about GDP, which does not feed anybody, but in terms of essentially having people be able to earn and enjoy a standard of living that grows over time.
Let me start with the End Bad Governance protest that we saw, or the hunger protests, as some people would call it. Several states' governors seem to say that, look, the federal government was pushing the heat to them, as opposed to the fact that it was their policies that were causing the problems that they had to deal with. But then, of course, also as Nigerians, we sometimes overlook our governors and always put everything at the feet of Mr. President. And so these governors fly under the radar, doing absolutely nothing and banking on the fact that we'll always continuously point fingers at the governor. Now, I remember that some time ago you actually raised some concerns about certain things in the Lagos State budget. I remember. Have those issues been resolved? Because I remember that the government also responded.
Are they ever really resolved? I mean, the government responded to some of the issues that we raised. Some of them were non-responses as far as we were concerned. Others were explanations. Others were excuses. But I think at the end of the day, what we took away as a win from that whole exercise was that it made the government sit up. Mm-hmm. They had to come out and explain. And then other people, followed suit and were raising other things in other states and so on. And so, that whole process of awareness building, of holding people accountable, of making people understand that, look, somebody's watching. They're not alone, in a stadium, right? So it makes them behave differently. I mean, even the governor was on TV talking about it and so on and so forth, which, really you don't see, it's not something that you typically would see, right? So that was good in that sense. But, look, at the end of the day, we're in a federation. And many quarrel with whether we are operating a federation as a true federation and so on and so forth. But the truth of the matter is that we have states. The Constitution does delineate certain powers for the states and certain powers for the federal government. If you don't stand up for the powers that the Constitution gives you, nobody will stand up for it for you, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of the time, what people are complaining about today, when you say when fingers are pointed to the federal government, is by way of excuse, because the things that were happening, when they were happening, and the states could have made a noise about them. How many states made a noise about them, right? So when the federation was borrowing ways and means, in the tens of trillions, printing money, and so how many governors? You can point to one or two, and we all know who they were, who spoke up at that time, right? The reality of it is that if people don't take that responsibility of public trust seriously, because we are elected as a governor, what are you being elected as? The people are electing you as their de facto leader, the de facto CEO of their state. Not just that, they are also electing you as the person who represents their state in the federation, right? It's not always that the actions of the federal government will be in your interest as a state. And one of the things that is your job as the person who is running a state is, if the federal government is going in a direction that it does not have the authority to, or that it is inimical to the interests of your people, is contrary to the foundations and the ethos of the federation and the federating principles, it is your responsibility as the representative of the people in the state to call the federal government, right? And we have not had enough of that. I would just say in conclusion that this is another area where I think that, we have a big challenge, I think, in Lagos, right? Because this notion of, independence from the federal government, ability to stand your ground on the part of your people where necessary, is very challenged, as you can imagine, in the present structure, federal structure of government.
Quickly, I just want to ask you if you could answer this in 2 minutes. The Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road Project, I know that you're very concerned about it. In fact, I'd like to ask why you're suing the BPP, in relation to that project. I presume that you're one of those who've kicked against this project. So I'll give you 2 minutes to answer, and then I'll allow Lagosians to join the conversation.
Look, my beef with the project is very simple. It's very simple. It has nothing to do with the underlying merits of the road or not the road. It has more to do with the process that was undertaken and what it means for the future of this country. It has a lot to do with the things that we've been talking about, the rule of law. These are the things that ultimately determine whether your country progresses over time or not. So it's not about the road today or tomorrow. It is about the fact that a contract of over 10 trillion was awarded without competitive bidding to an entity that is known to be affiliated with the chief executive of the country. That is in violation of laws that we have in this country, namely the public procurement law. And so when we say we are going to court to challenge it, we're just saying, these are the facts, this is the law, this thing is unlawful, and it needs to be undone.
Okay.
Right? And at the end of the day, when you award something for over 10 trillion and you just give it to one person, without competitive, how do you know that you are getting value? How do you know? I would not do it for a business that I run. Nigeria Info, I'm sure, does not do it for its suppliers. Nigeria should not do it. The second point on which action is founded is the fact that till today, I have not seen, nobody has seen, and no, you have not seen an environmental impact assessment for that project. This is a project which is on the coastline of Lagos. Lagos is a low-lying coastal city. We deal with flooding all the time. It is unconscionable that you will proceed with a project like this without environmental impact assessment. People are losing lives and property because of floods. That's why there's a law that says you must have an EIA and it must be published and people must see it and see what the impact and what mitigating measures you are taking. And the government flouted that law. Government cannot act unlawfully.
I want to quickly ask you a question. My time is totally gone, so hopefully you can answer it in a minute. My colleagues talked extensively about it this morning. The fact that you can't carry anything, you can't move your, let's say you're moving houses, you can't pass anywhere without being extorted. The level of extortion in Lagos, will it ever end? Can we conquer it? Because it looks like it's come to stay. Whether you're governor or not, what is the solution, or are we really enslaved to these extortionists?
Oh, let me. So this one is quite simple. I think that basically, the reason what you have to understand is that the reason why that stuff persists is because, in the way in which it does, is because those people are part of the power structure of the state. They are used by those who are running the state as it's part of their power structure. They use them during political season. They are part of their institutional structure. So they are beholden to them.
So are you saying that the Lagos state government actually empowers these people to extort Lagosians?
At a minimum, they turn a blind eye, because these are the same people. These are the same people who form part of the structure that they rely upon to maintain their hold of government. And I'm saying that, look, the solution to this is if you need a government that does not rely on those as the primary means of coming in and sustaining power. And that government, when it comes in, can find a way of employing those people in more productive ways within the society. It ties into what I talked about, technical education. I can talk about many other things, but there are integrated policies that you can bring about. But you can only bring it about if those things you are trying to get rid of are not part of your institutional power structure.
Interesting. Well, we've been talking with Funsho Doherty. He is a former governorship candidate and now a member of the People's Democratic Party. Are you running for governorship again in 2027? Is that why you've joined the PDP?
Well, only God knows the future, but there is no reason.
That is the most political response ever.
I see no reason. I see no reason why I would not continue in the quest to bring good governance to the people of Lagos, because I believe I have the capacity, I have the character, and I have the interest of the people at heart. And if people will give me their mandate, I will certainly discharge it.
All right.
Integrity and with trust.
Well, I want to say thank you, Funsho Doherty, for joining us on the show today. Hopefully we can bring you back again sometime in the future. And good luck on your political endeavors. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mary-Ann, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.